Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Earthdawn Survival Guide, the podcast for all disciplines, paths, players, and game masters. With your questers, Josh and Dan, I am Dan.
And I am Josh.
And on today's podcast, we will be discussing all things thanatological yet again, because we're on part 4, I believe, of our dive into the horror constructs. We have 2 to talk about today, but many subgroups of these 2. So if you have any questions for us...
Yeah, in this episode, we are going to be talking about a category of horror construct, and we're actually going to start our dive into actual horrors.
Yes.
With another category, so this will kind of span between them. But anybody who was following along with the companion in our previous episode on this subject would have noticed that we skipped several pages, or that we got to the end and then kind of stopped.
Yep.
Because after the Wretched Imp comes this first sort of this final category of powerful horror constructs.
But we decided to lump these together because there's so many of each one that it was this was perfect. We have like 5 of one and 7 of the other. So we'll just lump all of them together and go, these 12, your dirty dozen, diabolical dozen? Detrimental dozen? I don't know. Pick a D. We'll go with sibilance in this one. That we're just going to lump them all together because they're just so fantastic to put together. Use them as you wish. So if you have any questions for us about what you're going to hear, or if you've used these, we want to hear about it. I really, really do. So contact us at edsgpodcast@gmail.com. So this leads us into the Ehrlgren. Ehrlgren. So I think it's just like, I'm not even sure where the name came from, but it's... Yeah.
Ehrlgren. Yeah, I don't know where the name came from. Morgan came up with all of these.
It sounds like a cat ran
They are
across the
all
keyboard
powerful. Yeah. They are a category of horror constructs that seem to exist for the sole purpose of spreading corruption. They have corrupted living crystals that captured their spirit upon death, and they just have a lot of weird powers. A lot of them really are powers that mess with spellcasters.
Yeah.
Like the powers that they have, generally speaking, like a lot of the horror constructs that we have talked about thus far have been physically imposing, difficult, tough physical fights. There have been some that were not so much. This category, these are the mystical ones. These are the ones that are definitely going to cause problems for magicians
specifically
in your party.
Yeah, these are officially undead. They prefer not to kill magic users because they prefer to just drag them away and do things with them. So go with that. So I kind of think of these as like a Frankenstein's monster, powered and controlled by the crystals that are implanted. And the crystals, by the way, for a visual, since I'm very visual, these are mostly green and black glowing crystals. So Superman's kryptonite type glow, my guess.
Yeah, that's not bad. It would always be to me like very kind of dirty and clouded and tainted.
Oh, yeah.
There would definitely be that aura or miasma about them.
Zack Snyder's Superman, not Richard Donner's.
Look, I have not seen any of the Zack Snyder Superman movies, so I don't know.
I have.
But yeah. Anyway.
So these are Frankenstein monster body parts all stitched together, mostly where they should be. Mostly. But yeah, we'll just kind of start getting into the first of these. The Draamf Ehrlgren. This is, I had to look up the word sessile. This is kind of almost fixed in one place, because sessile means immobile. So these are basically planted in one spot because they are so huge. They're vile to look upon. They have large and very bloated bodies, loose skin, leaking corrupted fluid and things. There's 3 crystals in 3 of their foreheads because they're, again, smushed together. There are other crystals in their torso. They have 6 arms that are not symmetrically arranged because why would you? Their heads are bellowing constantly, unintelligibly, and whatnot. And they have 4 legs that are basically the size of trunks. So picture that. Just let that mull in your head for a minute or so. Go, Josh.
Yeah. These guys are...
repulsive?
They're repulsive. All of the Ehrlgren are, to one degree or another, repulsive. The thing with these is that they are not frequently encountered alone. They tend to spread their attacks out against multiple targets. They're not particularly smart or even particularly cunning. They're just kind of big, disgusting monstrosities that don't really move around a whole lot, but have a suite of powers that make them really annoying and difficult to deal with. Again, to kind of like talk about how these are all sort of mess with magicians and whatnot. They gain a +5 to attack tests against a target who cast a spell or were successfully affected by a spell during that round or the previous round. That does not apply to thread weaving, but actual spell casting. They've got astral sight. They can detect the use of magic within 100 yards. Astral space within 100 yards of them is 2 levels higher than normal. So, you know, like raw casting, grimoire casting that would be affected by astral corruption.
So just this aura of astral taint.
This just aura of astral corruption about them. It also means that anything that would need to pierce the modifiers for astral corruption need to overcome that within the vicinity. Like if you have a spell where you need to astrally sense the target, you need to overcome that higher difficulty number. The miasma around them is just like nauseating. Anyone coming within 10 yards of it is harried as a result of that. They can make a toughness or willpower test to kind of overcome that. It's a difficulty 10, so it's not easy to do. And then they've got a Ray of Corruption, which is a ranged attack that can reach out to 100 yards at maximum range and deals not insignificant damage. That's actually their sort of highest damage attack, are these ranged bolts of energy that they fire out. The special maneuvers they've got, if they roll high enough on an attack test, they can cause the highest circle spell affecting the target to unravel and dispel. They can spend additional successes on an attack test to randomly corrupt one of the target's spell matrices. This includes any that might be included as like a magic item or something like that. The next time a spell is cast from that matrix, the target suffers warping as if they had cast it using raw magic.
Basically, so pure evil.
Again, yeah. Spells are just not great around them. Like they do stuff that is going to cause problems for magicians in the way that a lot of the other ones would kind of cause problems for physical characters. So these are just bleh, nasty.
Pure evil.
Nasty, odious, stinky, raving monstrosities.
I know some people like that. I'm kidding. On to the second one, because the Ehrlgren is an overall category. The Draamf was first. This is the Kaschrek Ehrlgren. This is a medium-sized humanoid base thing. Again, under the category of Ehrlgren, some implanted crystals here and there. These have the smooth, pale gray skin. They are very gaunt. And the crystals are in their eye sockets and in their foreheads. And
they've got similar powers to the other. Like all of the Ehrlgren have sort of like a similar suite of abilities. They've got the Ray of Corruption power that they get the bonuses to attack against those who cast a spell or were successfully targeted by a spell. The astral corruption around them is only 50 yards and is only 1 level higher than normal. So they're not quite as corrupting as the Draamf. They can also, with a high enough attack test, dispel spells that are on a target, and they can do the pollute a matrix.
Wow.
So, you know, again, very, very similar kind of suite of abilities. They're just kind of in a different style. They are not as physically tough as the Draamf, but they are a lot more intelligent and cunning, and quite frequently lurk at the back of whatever group of constructs and undead that they might be operating with and targeting other ranged attackers, be those spellcasters or archers or whatever. Again, like a kind of thing that will cause problems for the back line.
Deceptively clever or cleverly deceptive, take your pick. Either way. On to the Kruhz, Kruhz, Kruhz Ehrlgren. These are the Misshapen humanoids. They're formed of wax, dripping wax, and rotting corpses. They're like killed before they are seen, but I have to read part of this description because, holy, Morgan outdid himself in this one. They are restless, always roaming despite their difficulty in moving. They seemingly random wanderings are sometimes punctuated by keening wails emanating from their various mouths, mostly located on their flabby neck. The unsettling sounds reverberate unnaturally in the surroundings, making determining the origin impossible, as it seems to come from multiple locations. Like all, they are drawn to magic, sensing its use. Once detected, Kruhz Ehrlgren converge upon the source, their approach punctuated by the wet, meaty thumping of their irregular gait. Yeah, that sounds pleasant.
Yeah, they are another disgusting, smelly Frankenstein's monster of nastiness that are going to cause problems. They likewise have the ranged ray of corruption ability. They don't have the astral wake where they get the bonuses, but they've got the wailing that comes from their multiple mouths acts as a general sort of harried penalty against anybody who is within them. And if there are multiples of these, then the step number of that test goes up. It's a test that's made at the beginning of the round before initiative is determined. You make one test with additional, the step is higher for the number of them. And it targets everything. It reduces everything, including social defense.
Are easily provoked.
Yeah. They have the same sort of stinky miasma of corruption around them that would also cause people to be harried, being able to make a test to try and overcome it. They've got the same dispel magic and matrix pollution abilities that all of the Ehrlgren have. And so they can do that with their ray of corruption, striking a spellcaster at range and polluting their matrices and sort of causing them to damage themselves. And when you're talking about the ones that increase the level of astral corruption, if you are too close to those things, you're going to take even more damage as a result. You look at these things and you're like, Morgan, what do you have against spellcasters?
Well, it was their turn. As you said, everything else we've had is either physical or social.
Yeah, there's, not been, a lot of the stuff that's physical, a lot of stuff that spellcasters can kind of get around by being behind the frontline fighters or engaging at range and whatnot, may not end up being difficult to deal with in some regards, unless you've got large numbers of things that are overcoming the front line and getting through. But these are just going to complicate a situation more because they make things more difficult for the magicians. Now, keep in mind, these things were created by the horrors to mess with magicians. Like, that's their whole...
Yeah, that's the whole point.
Raison d'etre.
Since the horrors are so magically powerful, why not create something that deals with the opponent's magically powerful forces? I mean, that just makes sense, tactically speaking. So, yeah. Last, and certainly not least, is it Robiech Ehrlgren?
Yeah, I haven't actually asked Morgan what the pronunciation of each of these are.
I'm going to go with that. Robiech. Robiech. Sounds French. Whatever. Because I can. These are the hairless, yet heavily scarred Ehrlgren, whose lips are stitched together with sinew. So, there's a visual. Just sleep on that tonight. Happy Halloween.
And with no eyes.
Yeah.
They're just got like sort of taut gray skin over their face.
Yeah, these are encountered.
They have very little remaining in terms of like nose or ears. So that's this kind of like largely gray, taut, featureless face with just this kind of stitched together mouth. Yeah. They are incredibly like flexible and fast. And like all Ehrlgren, they've got the crystals in various places. Like it says, it's difficult to tell their actual size, but if they stand up to their full height, they're taller than trolls. So these are very tall, gangly, but they are frequently like sort of hunched over and
and they
stretched out and whatnot.
And just one is creepy enough, but this is a pack animal. They swarm.
Yeah.
So if there's one, there's more than one around, just so you know. If you only see one, there's more coming. But they tend to swarm, dogpile, gang up on, and I can say frenzy, but like piranha.
They are not particularly smart. They're more cunning and they're fast, but they're not particularly tough. They are unaffected by any kind of darkness or blindness penalty or effect because they don't have eyes. They're not affected by it. They can detect magic use in the area. They gain bonuses to attack tests when attacking anybody who had a lower initiative result than them. They've got great leap, so they can cover distances quite well. They've got a movement rate of 18. Ooh. They are fast, with a high initiative step and a fast movement rate. They do, within 50 yards of them, the corruption level is 1 higher. And then, like the others, they've got the corrupt enchantment and pollute matrix abilities. They do not have the ranged attack. They don't have the ray of corruption that the other Ehrlgren have. So they're sort of more the physical, like closing the distance, but they're so fast and difficult to hit that they will frequently be able to get past frontline people to go and physically attack.
Yeah. Well, and they overwhelm in numbers.
Spellcasters in the back line.
Like a herd of ants.
If they get a high enough, they can spend 2 extra successes from their attack to get an additional attack against the target. So rather than, like, they basically get an entirely full attack instead of just boosting their damage if they want. They've got Pounce ability, which, like, enhances their attacks when they leap and whatnot. So these are kind of like a fast, difficult, creepy, like, all of these are just...
So these are the xenomorphs from Alien... It's the sequel. Just swarming you in packs. Creepy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with that.
That's not a bad thing. I mean, they are scaled as only a 6th circle challenge. So they are sort of the weakest of the Ehrlgren that are in this book here. But broadly speaking, all of these, you get mixed groups of these, or you get some of these mixed in with other horror constructs like brutes or other stuff. And they can just cause problems even for high journeyman or warden groups. Mm-hmm. There's just a lot of nastiness there, and they're just
puerile.
They're a joy. They really are.
Enjoy slaying those. That's just me. So that takes care of the Ehrlgren. So how's that for a nice little less than half dozen? Because the overall Ehrlgren, the Draamf, the Kaschrek, the Kruhz, and the Robiech. Yeah, that's plenty. But we have more for you because we're doing a longer show today. Let's get on to the Gnashers. Now, this is, when people talk about the Scourge, this is the army that actually came through and destroyed things physically. This is what did it. So This is I can't say the bare bones basics, but this is the overall, when we talk about the Scourge, this is the thing that came across the land like a horde and eradicated,
just devouring everything that they encountered.
Yeah.
Like, these are the most basic type of horror. They numbered in the thousands during the Scourge and roamed in packs, devouring anything that they encountered. They are horrors, but they are very, very simple in that regard, in that they do not form the plans and plots or work to manipulate name givers or seek to have them do nasty things to each other. These are just semi-mindless eating machines.
This is the fire that spreads. It doesn't care what it touches. It doesn't care how it consumes it. It just consumes it. So
there are some that speculate that the leavings of these, they are basically mostly mouth with, and they are incredibly varied in their appearance and whatnot, but the sort of common feature of Gnashers is that they basically will eat anything, and the process that whatever kind of metabolism or whatever that they undergo, some speculate that it is one of the sources of astral taint and corruption, that like they sort of devour stuff and leave astral taint in their wake as a kind of leaving or trail or spoor or whatever. These are likely to be among the earliest horrors, true horrors that a group is likely to face. And they're kind of great, especially when you get into a higher circle. Like if you're talking about just the bog standard basic Gnasher that's in the GM's guide, when you get to a higher level group, you can throw a bunch of these things at a group and just have a fun time, like hacking them to pieces.
Oh, total hack and slash.
What kind of makes them tough in some senses, especially if you're dealing with numbers, they've also got karma, and they regain karma by feasting on living flesh. They're immune to fear. They've got great leaps, so they will kind of like jump on you and whatever. These are in some ways, like if you think of stuff like the critters from that movie, although they would be bigger, just any kind of like big
just
swarm.
A swarm of fire ants.
Mindless
or the scarabs
horde.
From the Mummy.
Yeah, like fire ants or something like that, where there are just a bunch of them, and in sufficient numbers they can very easily wreck your day, and they are a challenge for novice adepts, but not so tough that you would like be really scared of facing them.
It's Josh's point. These have a bestial intellect. They're not the great thinkers. These are the mindless drones that just devour everything in their path.
Yeah, like, I know what I was thinking of, like the Starship Troopers movie. The main bulk of the bug hordes that would swarm over, like, that's the kind of image that you want to think of when you're picturing these things operating during the Scourge, is that there were just scores and scores of them swarming over the landscape, devouring and wrecking anything that they came across.
Yeah. So let's get to them. We have, these are the general Gnashers appear in the Game Master's Guide because they're a holdover from first edition or something like that.
Yep. They were introduced in the Horrors book. They actually were not.
Right.
In the original first edition source book. This was basically, the Horrors book. Oh, here's kind of the thing that was in massive numbers, but not a particularly like difficult opponent the way that you think of other horrors as these masterminds or manipulators or whatever.
Yeah. These are just the basics. Then we've got, variants thereof. And this is where the companion comes in.
Right. And so one of the problems, in scare quotes, I want to say,
wrinkles.
Yeah, with regards to the sort of base Gnasher, is that it is in some ways kind of boring after a little bit. Like, again, they can be dangerous, they can be, especially in sufficient numbers, but with the companion, we were looking at providing horrors as opposition for higher circle characters, but not necessarily having them be all these manipulative
masterminds, yeah.
Worm skulls and despair thoughts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
These are variants of the Gnasher because there are a wide variety of them that just happen to be sort of physically more powerful or appear in different arrangements of parts compared to, just to provide a little bit of variety and inspiration for people to kind of come up with their own stuff.
Yeah. So let's, the Crackjaw, just alphabetically, because we've been doing that for most of this entire series. The Crackjaw Gnashers, these are almost dinosaur-like. They're 18 feet tall. They are also pack animals, but they're 6 yards tall, with disproportionately large maw filled with very many teeth, attached to a long, flexible neck. Think dinosaur. An even longer spiked tongue extends and drips a terrible corrosive fluid. They are vaguely bipedal, with a reclining posture and long forelimbs. 2 slender arms that end in long spikes extend from their midsection. These are used to spear prey and drop them into the second mouth, located in the horror's stomach. Like I said, it's a mollified. It's like a T-Rex gone bad.
Yeah, it's awful.
The art's great, by the way.
It's physically imposing. It's got karma. It's got 4 actions per round, multiple bite attacks, claw attacks, with attack and damage steps in the 20s, step 20s.
Yeah.
They also have corrosive. Their corrosive stuff like reduces armor ratings and whatnot.
So
they can swallow targets whole and get ground up and digested in its innards.
Mm-hmm.
It's just very, very big. The standard Gnashers are the Jurassic Park raptors. This is the T-Rex, right? In the Jurassic Park movies,
Mamma Jamma,
you typically will have like the one big nasty thing
dinosaur,
as opposed to like the pack of whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this is. It is brutal, and again, like for a journeyman group, might serve as a difficult thing, but running into multiples of them is really a bad day.
Pretty much, yeah, because just one is a 9th circle challenge, so good luck with that. I think we'll stop with the dinosaur references after this one. because it needed to be made.
Yeah.
Just got to say, it needed to be made. But yeah, these are big, bad, and nasty. So have fun throwing those against your party. The next are the deep crawler Gnashers. These are snake-like, about 3 feet wide, many, many yards long. They've got claws and limbs that stick out kind of all over at random places, so that's not creepy. And then they are, of course, sightless because that just makes things extra creepy. But as they approach you, they cause vertigo and nausea in their prey by this ultrasonic moan.
Yeah, they're completely sightless. They rely on scent and sensing vibrations in order to hunt their prey. They operate in tunnels, and they've got this kind of circular maw that they can use to grind through stone, and little tendrils that kind of also emerge from it that will like reach out and grab things and pull it into its mouth. These are like tunnel horrors. I imagine that these sorts of things would have potentially been directed by more powerful horrors to perhaps try and eat through or weaken the structural integrity of underground cares.
Yeah.
They don't particularly like operating on the surface. They prefer their tunnels and enclosed spaces. But likewise, despite what may otherwise seem to be a kind of solitary existence, they actually do also operate in packs.
Ugh. Just one's hideous enough.
Yeah. Like, individual ones aren't particularly tough. They're only sort of rated as a fifth circle challenge. But they've got the ultrasonic moan that causes harried penalties for those who are affected by it. Again, karma, the grinding teeth. They automatically, on their bite attack, gain an additional success that has to be spent on their armor cutter maneuver, which reduces the physical armor rating of the target by 1.
Yikes.
So, like, they will grind up your armor and cause a bad day. And again, where you will frequently be fighting these things in close quarters, underground tunnels, and things like that can be rough.
Yeah, because there's not a whole lot of light, so they'll sneak up on you. Although, I don't think I want to see them in a well-lit alley either, to Josh's point a couple episodes ago. So, on to because they have a list of powers. The Gravetail Gnasher. These are 8-legged, large lizards covered in spikes. They have 4 tails with barbed spikes each, 4 sets of eyes, both above and below their mouth, because that's just wrong. They don't arrive in hordes of more powerful horrors. These actually are just a whole separate entity entirely, but they have a litany of powers and maneuvers.
Yeah.
In their arsenal.
They're nasty. Their tail attack targets mystic defense instead of physical defense.
Yeesh.
So they kind of get that spirit strike ability built in. They've got charge at rank 10, which means that when they close in swiftly for an attack, they will deal extra damage. You know, again, they've got karma. They've got long range on their tails. They have an ability called Life Siphon, where they can spend successes from attack tests to drain a recovery test from their victim if it causes a wound.
Oh.
And it regains recovery tests when it does that. It gains it, like it regains its spent ones when it does that.
It steals yours to use for itself.
So it can spend a recovery test that it gained through that to immediately heal itself. What it's doing is it is draining the life from their targets and healing themselves as well, which can make it very difficult to put them down because they've got reasonably high death and unconsciousness ratings as it is and reasonable physical armor. So you really need to kind of take them down quickly. Otherwise they may, mess you up and continue to heal. You end up kind of needing to do extra attacks all the time.
Yeah, I think the armor-piercing special maneuver is I can't say favorite, but it's my favorite.
Yeah, they can spend successes on the attack test with their tail to reduce physical and mystic armor of their target by 3 per success spent.
Each.
Yeah, only for that attack. It's not like a long-term reduction. Yeah. It's just a temporary thing.
But still, 3 physical and 3 mystic. No thank you.
In addition to the Spirit Strike, where their tails target Mystic Defense, they can spend additional successes to affect Mystic Armor instead of physical armor. So they can kind of cause some problems there. They can spend additional successes to reduce the target's wound threshold, having this sort of vicious wounds ability. But again, like, they are fast, deadly, multiple attacks, rough, disgusting hunter horrors.
Oh yeah, that's why they're horrors. On to the gyre Gnashers. These are pony-sized, basically maws with 4 wings and 2 clawed feet. Beautiful plumage, but otherwise horrifically beautiful. Also nasty. 6th circle challenge rating. Take it away, Josh.
Yeah, these are flying horrors.
Oh, flying mouth of death.
Yeah. Again, like, all Gnashers are largely physical in nature. Because they fly, they have dive attack, which increases the damage if they're able to dive on their target, the way like some birds of prey do. They've got enhanced senses. If they cause a wound with their bite, they immediately cause damage equal to the victim's wound threshold and the associated wound. If they cause a wound, they basically automatically deal another wound. They have the vicious wounds ability where they can reduce the target's wound threshold. Fortunately, if they reduce the wound threshold, then on that ravenous ability, they do the lower amount, and there's no limit to the number of bite attacks they can make. They can force knockdowns by buffeting targets with their wings. They're nasty.
Yeah, because there's no limit to the number of bite attacks they can make in a round. Ow!
Yeah, if you listened to the Legends of Earthdawn podcast, we fought some of these in the Ruins of Parlength.
Right. My memory goes back that far almost. But right. Those are not fun. If that's not enough for you, we got 2 more. Next up is the Slitherhorn Gnashers. These are like slender wolves in appearance, but they have 3 sets of eyes and are otherwise mouthless on their head. They have 2 long tentacles with mouths and spinning teeth on those. They can also plunge an area into darkness and quiet. They travel in packs. And the visual I had for this was the old-fashioned displacer beast from D&D. Does that jive with you?
That's not a bad image, except rather than a panther, think something a little bit more canine and with almost like an arrow-shaped head that's got these spikes on the end. And again, multiple eyes to really kind of go for that eerie alien look.
Oh, yeah. I think the emaciated wolf in 300 is not a bad place to start then.
Yeah. They can cast ethereal darkness. They've got their tentacles have an extended range. They've got stealthy stride and surprise strike. So these are ambush predators in a sense. They will plunge an area into darkness and they are really quiet. That's hence the stealthy stride. And so they can ruin your day.
And your night.
Like all of these things can. They can reduce the target's physical armor. They can spend additional attacks on a goring charge to force knockdown. With their tentacles, they can grab and bite. So, yeah, just more examples of weird, dangerous creatures that you can run into.
Exactly. And last, and certainly not least, is the Spike Stalker Gnasher. This is a horse-sized feline with, of course, saber teeth, because why not, with 2 sets of eyes, and a multiple-sectioned mouth, 2 sets of ears, and 4 additional chitinous insect-like legs that are razor-sharp, naturally. They hunt in packs, they are feelers, they are cunning, and they frenzy on their prey. So imagine not one, but more than one of these coming at you.
Yeah, their multiple sets of eyes are actually pointed in opposite directions. So the only way that you can blindside them is through the use of powers or abilities that grant it, like distract. So you wouldn't get blindside bonuses if you were like flanking them, like one in front and one behind. You would not get bonuses like that because they've got eyes in the back of their head. They frenzy, so if they knock down a target, they gain bonuses to attack and damage. They've got Great Leap, and of course, along with that, Pounce, which combines with Great Leap to force knockdowns and stuff.
Yeah.
They have Stealthy Stride as well, the Pounce and Hamstring abilities. They can spend additional successes to force knockdown tests, and like some of these others, have the vicious wounds to reduce the target's wound threshold to make it easier for them to cause wounds on the target.
Yeah.
So, yeah, all of these things are physical challenges, typically operate in packs or numbers, so that you are not generally facing just one. Different styles, different approaches. You know, some of them are big, lumbering, powerful beasts. Some of them are stealthy ambush predators. Some of them are flying maws of death. Some of them are tunneling annelid type things. But the general gist is all of them are ravenous, will eat anything that they come across, and do not have any kind of real sapience that you could reason with or anything along those lines. These are largely cunning, perhaps, but otherwise kind of mindless killing machines.
The Terminator. It has no remorse,
Yeah.
no fear. It will not stop ever until you are dead.
These are the sorts of things that either cause problems in remote areas, or you might find as the residents in a ruined care or abandoned citadel or something like that. You don't need to feel guilty about hacking them to pieces because they are alien creatures from the depths of astral space that are just here to wreck people's day. There's no sympathy required for them. There's no identifying with them or perhaps weirdly understanding their motives in terms of what they're doing or why they're going about it. These are just smash things up and wreck people's day.
These are not monsters. These are not your generals. These are not your commanders or your lieutenants. These are the foot soldiers. This is the army of death coming at you. You know, vanquish them as you see fit, because they're not going to give up. They're not going to stop. And yeah, they'll more than kill you than anything else. So if you have any questions for us, or if you've used some of these, again, we'd like to hear tales of how these were used and or defeated. Please email us at edsgpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, go gnash some Ehrlgren for your legend.
Good night, everybody.